you don't have a big analytics team, this stuff is really hard to pull. Like I wouldn't even know where to start. I would have to definitely hire like an analyst to pull this. So that is, I'd say, a big benefit as well in terms of like time and money saving is using some of those like LTV and model comparison tools.
Happy to have you. Excited. All right, let's go ahead and kick this off. If you've been to any of our webinars in the past, this is the first one where we have someone who is not internal to Northbeam leading this and driving this. And what we hope to do is kind of create a series where we've got data experts from outside of the company sharing how they use Northbeam. As any of you know, that if you are all seasoned media buyers, it's not quite the same for everyone. Like data has to be interpreted and certain decisions have to be made. And so we want to hear from as many different perspectives as we can in terms of how we think about different data. So if you go to the next slide, I'll tell you what we're going to cover. We're going to have Carly kind of go through this. We're going to keep it a little conversational, but we'll kind of pose some questions. Ryan's going to be driving, and hopefully Ryan can share some insights as well. But we're going to cover what Carly, the first thing she checks on the platform, the metrics she optimizes for, what features she regularly uses. Last week, we talked about creating custom labels. She's going to tell us how she looks at custom labels. And then naming conventions and ad accounts. And a little background on Carly. So I've only got Lively. She manages some other brands, but I'll let her share that information if she wants to, but they are an amazing brand. You can read a little bit about them here. And if you want to follow up later and learn more about them, you certainly can. But with no further ado, I'm going to hand it off to Brian, who's going to tee up some of these questions.
Hey, Carly, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
I think everybody here is pretty excited because, the number one question is like really understanding how we're going to use Northbeam on like a regular basis, like as a media buyer. I think a lot of people who are looking to dip their toes in and get started. The first question on everybody's minds is literally, what is the first thing you do when you log into Northbeam every day? Where do you start?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, first of all, thank you so much for having me. So happy to be here. And definitely, I'm not quite an expert, but, hoping to learn and attend these seminars and, keep getting better and better each time. But no, thank you for having me. Yeah, so I know we have some fake data here to kind of walk through, but I would say the first thing I look at is, I know there is the overview tab, but maybe I'm a little bit of a rebel here. I like to kind of click over to the sales tab, and then I kind of like to just get a sense of yesterday's data just to make sure like nothing's broken, on our campaigns, nothing like urgent that I really need to address quickly. So kind of go over to look at yesterday, and then I'll click on platform data just to kind of get like a high level overview by platform. So pixels can break and budgets can go crazy. So it kind of gives a good sense of just like selecting platform, glancing at every single platform just to kind of give myself a sense of what I need to address first. So I'll kind of do that and then scroll down. So this is kind of what I look at. And again, these numbers are kind of not from Lively, but this would give me a good sense of, let's say our Facebook ROAS was normally a 1. And this was saying 0.7, I might say, okay, something's weird. I'll kind of make myself a little note list, like I need to address that. Maybe Google's looking great. I need to like give the buyer a thumbs up on that one. So kind of gives me like a good sense of, okay, what do I need to dig into next?
So you're actually coming in and checking yesterday's performance every single day. This is not like a weekly check-in or you're adjusting like on a daily level.
I would say even multiple times a day, and maybe I'm a little nutsy, but I like to really check this. I would say kind of first thing in the morning, I'll log onto my computer, get my coffee, log on and really like open this and kind of look at yesterday. I think it's good just before I start diving into campaigns. I want to make sure I'm addressing like the most urgent issue. So yeah, I pretty much look at this definitely in the morning and then usually in the afternoon as well. And since it is updated regularly, I'll even sometimes look at same day data in the afternoon just to make sure my adjustments are making sense. I also check kind of where you just were the updated time just to make sure it's been updated, recently to give myself a sense.
I was just going to chime in that I love it. I love the yesterday coming in. Let's get a quick sense there. And I kind of share a similar habit. I do find myself just personally, I like to just right before I'm doing some of that yesterday sales data, I like to just kind of cost per new customer on my overview tab. Let me just get a trend against what we're seeing. That's maybe more applicable for, owner, CMO, managing a team a little bit. For experienced media buyer like Carly, she knows the trends intuitively. So yeah, I love to see that. And just wanted to toss that note. Brian, you had a cue?
I sort of already forgot, but I do want to ask, as far as like your relationship with the buyer and stuff like this, Carly, it's like you're coming in here, you're checking these every day, you're sending notes out to the team. Who exactly do you interface with on the regular, and how do you use Northbeam when you're like having conversations with them about what you saw in the account yesterday?
That's a great point. And I think that's important because you have to have the buyers, I'd say, have to be bought in on this. It is hard, I'd say, to have multiple sources of truth. At Lively, we do use this as kind of the source of truth across all channels. And I think, our Google buyer, for example, has access to Northbeam, is trained to use Northbeam and is using that. So we're kind of all talking about the same thing. If he's optimizing on GA data or Google Ads data, and I'm looking at Northbeam, it's just like we're not really aligned on the goal. So that is one positive, is all buyers, like all of our media is all based on Northbeam. So it is kind of that one source of truth. And we do use the, again, Lively is like a little bit of a shorter window. It's not like you're going to have to think about it for months to buy a bra. So we thankfully have a pretty short window. So we do use this like that multi-touch click 1 day window as kind of where the mouse is on that like ROAS 1 day kind of metric is what we use. I'm sure if you have a product that's like a little bit longer window, like furniture or something a little more expensive, maybe you use a longer window, but it's a little bit more of like a shorter kind of window. It makes it quick again, because I can like kind of look at yesterday and it's pretty much locked and loaded into that data.
That's actually a perfect segue into the next question, which is, what are some of the key metrics that, you optimize for at Lively, knowing that shorter consideration window, knowing the strategies that you're doing, this direct response stuff. What are you looking at when you come in here and you say, okay, we need to check this out today? What matters most to you and your business goals?
Yeah, so I still do use the platforms for, I'd say, more front-end data. So going to Facebook, for example, I do still utilize that for more creative-based metrics like maybe click-through rate or like thumb stop rate, which I define as kind of like the first 3 seconds, how many people are watching the first 3 seconds of your ad. So those sort of metrics, again, they're kind of fact, they're unrelated to data or iOS kind of issues. I'd say anything that's could be affected by the iOS 14 data, I'll utilize Northbeam for that data versus the platform. But kind of what I would do on a day-to-day basis is kind of start out looking by channel and making sure all the channels are in a good spot and kind of prioritized in terms of how I need to approach it. Let's say, as an example, Facebook, I'm kind of like, oh, this is not great. Let me dive in there first. What I would do is then kind of open up Facebook more granularly and actually kind of filter almost by that platform at the top and just go like super deep just into Facebook. Exactly. So I would do that.
Sometimes I toss a category on there, just colonize you can.
Getting fancy on that.
Yeah, especially for Google, I always like to do that. Just let me compare apples to apples against, my PMax and my Smart Shopping and my branded, but I'm with you.
No, I definitely agree. I think that's a great, like if I'm doing analysis or something, like a little bit higher level, maybe like weekly or something, I would definitely throw that kind of category on to get a little bit more of analysis. For the day-to-day, I really, and again, and this is like very granular, I do look at pretty much every single ad, pretty much every single day using this data. So it can take a lot of time, but I think it's worth it. It's worth it in the long run. So, I'll open up Facebook here, and then I have 3 screens. So I'll have Northbeam on my left screen, Facebook Ads Manager on my middle screen, and then I'll kind of just flip back and forth between the platforms. So I'll be in Facebook and kind of look at my, let's say, prospecting campaign and have prospecting campaign open on Northbeam, and then almost like copy and paste it and look back and forth. So I'm not even looking at any performance metrics in Facebook. I'm only looking at the like click-through rate or thumb stop or kind of, Facebook reported that are true metrics. And then I'll look at Northbeam for every other metric besides that. So I'll use it for conversion rate, ROAS, all of those metrics. I'll only look at Northbeam.
Yeah, I love the conversion rate call out. And you make a great distinction on kind of in platform, maybe we call them engagement metrics, right? Things that are not impacted by iOS. I do the same thing on my end. I understand, where are we at in relation to our baseline? And then let me check my soft metrics, right? In platform, that may be that engagement style. Google has some as well. Sometimes like for PMax on Google, I may do a similar thing and check out their individual insights. But yes, all of our kind of metrics that are in here, outside of spend and the impressions are mapped against everybody who comes to the website, right? So, click-through rate in CPC, there can totally be scenarios where somebody's clicking on a Facebook ad and they hit an outbound link, but maybe they bounce before getting to the site. Our CPCs are going to be a little bit different. So I agree with where your head's at, Carly. And for the engagement metrics as a proxy to like, are people engaging with this bad boy? Is it effective? Is it stopping the scroll? Is it catching attention? Facebook's still a great reference point against that. But for everything like this conversion rate, I love, right? And this is one of my kind of favorite soft metrics next to it is like, okay, we're seeing that these two, right? Conversion rate on this one, 205, going down to a 1.4 there. But this best one getting our best conversion rate. This one here getting strong conversion rate, but the ROAS is pretty poor on it. I want to lead into, but like that kind of tells me something, right? If like the website in the traffic that I'm sending are doing a good job getting there, but the targeting isn't getting the CPCs kind of as cheap as they need to be, that's something I can kind of arm and make my decision on.
Totally.
But
yeah. And I think your point about conversion rate is actually one thing I find really, really valuable. I know a lot of brands spend all this time and money testing landing pages and doing all of these different tests. And then they look at Facebook's conversion rate, which is honestly a made up number. It's, a modeled number, including a view through window. If you're optimizing on a view, like, I don't even know how to judge that when you're testing landing pages. So I would recommend not looking at, Facebook data at all for conversion rate. I'd say best priority is Northbeam. If you're not a Northbeam customer, Google Analytics, much better. I just think when people say like my conversion rate on Facebook is X and they're looking at Facebook, like that doesn't really, I don't know. I don't find that number very useful.
Totally agree. That's part of the rub with some modeled view over there. Similar for the email sign up rate, especially for maybe channels that are a touch more like maybe it is view focused, right? Or not as much direct response right away. But if there's a lot of email capture going on, that can be like a supporting metric. If something at kind of your core, the ROAS number that you're paying most attention to, Carly, this is splitting hairs, or maybe it's one you want to trim off, but the email sign up rate is sky high. I always think it's worth noting.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's not, I do think it is kind of or anti-science. It's not like if ROAS is bad, pause it. Like sometimes you need, as you said, a little more data or a little knowledge. And that's kind of why I will look at the email sign-up rate. I'll look at those kind of engagement metrics. If the click-through rate is terrible or the thumb stop is terrible and it's looking average, like if I want to just save some money, I'll maybe cut that out and move on to something else. But if it's looking good, maybe I'll leave it a little longer and get enough data to really look at that ROAS metric.
Yeah, I love that. Any other kind of thoughts, cues, follow-ups you want to hit on for key metrics, Brian?
No, I mean, I just wanted to point out that I think, Carly, what you're doing as far as where you're looking at engagement and how you're measuring conversion and stuff like that. I mean, we see this across all of our top high-performing e-commerce clients. Like they're all doing it that way. So like it's surprising that that's a common use case, but I mean, that's why Northbeam is here. I think what you're doing is kind of the new standard for the way people are doing their media buying, which I think is pretty cool. But I guess a good transition in the next question would be, apart from this sales view, like, which of course we're checking on the regular, you're coming in every day, you're making assessments, you're sending notes out, you're informing other teams. What other features of Northbeam do you regularly use? Because there's kind of a lot in here that I think people sometimes forget about.
Yeah, and I think that is one thing, and I'm kind of looking at the Q&A, and I think someone asked about like how much time this takes to kind of like learn the platform, and I think it's not an immediate thing. Like I definitely think it was like the first month I was kind of like, what is going on? By month 2, I was like, okay, this is cool, and then kind of like little by little, like kept finding new features. So I think for me, the number one is just like iOS 14 and overcoming that by using it to optimize. For me, that is kind of my number one favorite, but I really do I'd say there's like 2 other features that I use, not daily and maybe not even weekly. I'll use it kind of more like monthly. I really like the model comparison view. So yeah, we can click over to that. I find this really helpful. I think one of my biggest challenges is knowing how much to spend on each channel. That's really difficult for me. Like, should I shift budget from Facebook to Google or influencer? And This view, I'd say isn't like the solve, but it's really helps me provide guidance in terms of budget by channel. So what I'll do is I'll again filter by platform and then filter by a few different looks, and I'll kind of click around. So I do like the click and view versus maybe just click. Yeah, that's kind of my go-to, at least to start. And this gives me a really good view. And I would say usually I'm not surprised. It's kind of intuitive. So for example, Google doesn't have a lot of view through, which makes sense. It's like a very last click, lower funnel channel. So you can see here, it's pretty much just like very similar between click and view. And if you break it out, you can then get a little bit more granular into if you're running some maybe like upper funnel campaigns or display or something like that. You can get more granular, but I do really like this view because it does help answer the question, where for me, I would say, okay, Google's not providing much view through, so I should set a higher kind of click ROAS target for that channel because it's not driving that awareness. And again, there's not an exact number or formula. It's more just directional. That Google should have, again, a higher target because it's not driving that view through versus here YouTube ads. Wow, that's driving a lot of view through, again, kind of logical, but I would set a lower ROAS target for that if I'm optimizing on a click because it is driving that additional kind of like bonus view through awareness that I'm not capturing if I'm just looking at a click window. So this view, I don't look at like all the time, but I do find it helpful when I'm like thinking about budget allocation. It usually makes sense. I haven't been like too surprised, which is a good thing. Like obviously you would think like YouTube, Facebook, TikTok are a little bit more mid upper funnel, and some of these other direct response, email or text or Google are more lower funnel. But again, you never know. Like you might be surprised, and it kind of helps you again between those channels how to allocate.
We're such Northbeam power users that we just kind of like flew right through that, and we didn't even mention the power of view through, which is something that Northbeam provides that I think a lot of people, if we have new people in the audience who maybe aren't aware of what Northbeam does with that, our view through models are, most platforms and stuff like that are they're either estimating, they're guessing, or they're not providing sort of view through understandings of how all of your different channels are interacting, customer journeys and touch points and stuff like that. One of the main strengths of Northbeam is, with our algorithms, with our machine learning models that we've been building for literally years now, you're able to actually predict and get this view through performance and understand and do this analysis that you're talking about. And this is something that's not available really in any other client-facing platform. There's some you can attempt to do it yourself, but I would just trust the experts to do it. You know what I mean? This is really cool. I feel like we should probably do a whole webinar on view through sometime.
I would enjoy that. I would definitely want to attend. Yeah, but I agree. I find it helpful. And I think one thing I forgot to mention on the kind of first thing I look at with that view through, it does help capture things that I would miss if I was looking at Google Analytics. Like, for example, if an influencer starts going crazy, you'd be like, oh, we had a great day yesterday, but you might not catch that. Where if you do look at that view through by channel, you might say like, whoa, YouTube had a huge spike, or Instagram or something coming from an influencer or a press hit or something that you might not catch if you're just looking at Google Analytics.
That's really cool. Are there any other tools you like to use often in here?
Yeah, I do use that LTV tool on the left-hand side as well. Again, not like daily or weekly even, but maybe monthly. I'll kind of take a deeper dive, and I find this helpful. I kind of look at either by month, so month first acquired. I find this helpful because it kind of is like helping me catch mistakes, or, if we have like a big promotion and then we find out the LTV of those customers is not that great, at least we'll kind of look back and say, okay, if our CAC was lower, it still might be worth it, but maybe we have to just like rethink this a little bit more, based on kind of timing of what your marketing efforts are. So this is a good gut check just as a health of the business to make sure you're trending in the right direction. Okay, is your LTV month over month, week over week, going the right or the wrong way?
I totally agree. And I kind of find myself in the same boat. I'm not in here every day, right? But once a quarter, I'm kind of revisiting what were all the different, discount codes that we ran. Is one more valuable than the other, after 90 days? The other kind of big use case I have for this is anytime I'm retooling email, right? Or doing an email audit or overhauling all your flows and all that good stuff. I always find it pretty helpful to, sort by first order of product. And, maybe you're trying to plan out a win-back campaign, right? And what should be the subject matter of that win-back campaign? I'd be very interested in what is the percentage reordering between the days. Choose a time window that's most effective for you. And this product right here, I can see that, yeah, this has a lot of repeat purchase action. Maybe I should focus the subject matter of my emails around this product. So handful in here, but I share the same sentiment, Carly, both for LTV and for the model comparison, which I clicked away from, but both of them great for kind of catching like weekly, monthly trends. Or the other comment I had in there is new initiatives. So I find myself going into the model comparison if I'm like new type of, Facebook ad, right? Or new type of influencer initiative that I'm just doing. I do want to see, okay, is it catching view? How much? Is it catching more on average than other spots, right? And you made a great point that oftentimes just a quick glance in here on a 3-day window, if there are any big spikes, you may catch it a little bit faster than digging through each kind of pivot table that we have in the sales tab.
Exactly. And I think, and the LTV, just going back, I think to what you had there on that first product purchase, this is something I'm actually focused on right now, like really understanding this better. Just as customer acquisition costs rises, it's so expensive to acquire a customer that it's kind of saying like, what if you have 1,000 items or 1,000 SKUs, like what SKUs should you be acquiring customers on? It's not necessarily what drives that best first purchase ROAS, which again is usually what we're kind of going after. But again, if some other product has like such a high repeat rate compared to others, that's important to know. So we will, and I'm actively kind of looking into this, like, are we pushing the right first purchase product, or should we be switching our marketing dollars? Or maybe it even has a little lower first initial ROAS, but the LTV is so much stronger that it more than makes up for it.
Totally agree. I've gone through the same exercise with a few brands where just driving to the homepage, right? And maybe needing to make budget allocations, doing the trade-off of volume versus efficacy. In those scenarios, when you're doing that volume versus efficacy, I'm always very interested in which products of mine are going to pay me back at least, 5-10% more than average on like a 60-day, right? So my head is totally aligned there. And then I end up kind of exporting this whole table to CSV and running some kind of pivots against it to map out. But that's a similar use case that I run through.
And that's so critical, right? Because like you really want to, if you can, have as much of your LTV like front loaded as possible. I see a lot of people like espousing that strategy because it's just cash in your pocket, right? And you don't have to sit around and worry and wait for a customer to hit their long LTV because you're pursuing the tactics that are going to drive, cash flow quicker. I really love using the month one on this because I have customers, I've had customers in the past where I'm targeting them by the month cohort I get them in. If we're going to like go in more of a brand direction from the data and not just like how should we be doing media buying, but like a brand direction, psychologically, as some of the old companies I've worked for, the customers I acquire in April are in a completely different psychological place than the customers I acquire in, say, December, right? Which I'm sure a lot of people who have maybe high consideration or high gifting products will experience. And this table, I mean, if you don't watch yourself, you'll stare at this thing forever. And the insights come out of it so much. And it's crazy because it's just a heat map, right? It's so much more than that. And I think this is the like under the radar workhorse of the Northbeam platform that a lot of our customers are starting to really discover and leverage on the regular. So I'm so glad we brought this up.
Yeah. And I think sometimes I'd say, a lot of the time it's more just validating what we think. So you might think, customers acquired during Black Friday, maybe are lower quality because they're promotional customers, but definitely I've been proven wrong a lot of the time where you kind of think like, oh, this might be bad quality or whatever. And then you look and you're like, surprisingly, it's not. So I think it is kind of good to just gut check. And maybe 80% of the time it does validate, but that 10 or 20% of the time it is kind of a surprise to you. And again, if I had to pull this data myself, I wouldn't know how to do it. Like, you'd have to have like teams of analysts. It's very difficult. So I think that's a big positive is I don't have to bug anyone. I can just kind of come in here and look around myself.
Love it.
Super cool.
I don't know if you do this much, Carly, but I find myself once a week, right? And I'll be honest, I normally only do this when ads are cruising, right? When like efficiency is good and maybe the ads are on autopilot a little bit and like want to optimize and find more efficiencies in other spots. One thing I like to do is customer paths, last 7 days, and just see like at a super duper high level, what is driving the most path action to my site, right? And then again, if times are good and I don't need to worry about briefing or which campaigns I need to scale, but maybe I can optimize on the site or some other things. I like to, what is driving our most action to the website? I see this branded search, another branded search in the short sleeves. And then I like to drill into these and specifically look like what other touch points across our campaigns, categories, channels, platforms are kind of, and it's a little bit anecdotal, but if we scroll on down to this common click touch points and load up what interacted before or after, oftentimes I see a little bit of insight, right? Sometimes I've been seeing it lately for catalog campaigns, but catalog campaigns having a really effective conversion rate when folks from catalog campaigns enter via email. So I know some brands have started doing like specific pop-ups off catalog UTMs to try and align the messaging. But so I take a look at this brand, it's driving a ton of path action to our website. I know it's brand, so more bottom of funnel. So I'm just going to look what's everything that's driving interaction before, group it by platform. And I can see, okay, for the most part, Google ads are overlaying a lot with this, fair bit of organic, fair bit of Facebook. That's what I want to see. But when I do see email here, yeah, I'm seeing a slightly higher conversion rate clip. YouTube, honestly, this data set right here, nothing is screaming massive outlier. The situations where I have gotten wins is, if the Klaviyo handoff from a campaign is maybe like twice the efficacy from others, that's when I try and, drill in on that front. Well, let's just check and see what if Facebook's got any anecdotal, but just wanted to add that I'm not using, it's another one where maybe not every single day in my routine, but if I just launch, a bunch of awareness spend, or I just launch a new influencer initiative and I want to see, hey, is this actually impacting things downstream? This is where I kind of make use of that. So
that's awesome. I haven't checked. I'll have to try.
Let me know if you do.
For the sake of time, because I do want to give us some time for some questions. Let's roll these last two together. So we have two more questions. One was talking about custom labels, which is like a really powerful function in Northbeam. And another one was like naming conventions. So, Carly, are you using custom labels in Northbeam?
Yes, I have. I'd say it's definitely on the newer side for me in terms of like learning how to utilize them. But I do find it, again, as you said, really helpful because it is a common issue where I'm asked a question and I kind of say, this is going to take me hours to pull. But if it is a custom label, it just makes it like a million times easier. So it is becoming a little bit newer, but I do find it really helpful. And I think that does relate to the naming convention, which is something I'd say trying to get better at. It can be difficult, I'd say, to keep it clean and keep it consistent. But one thing I definitely include is like product name. Again, based on your business, if you're like a business that has a lot of different products, like Lively, for example, we have loungewear, swimwear, strapless, bralettes, and we might want to analyze kind of based off of those different categories. I'll just make sure in the name, I try to keep it really consistent, either like the landing page or the PDP I'm sending to, and include that in the ad name. So then I'm able to kind of do that analysis later on.
I'm a big fan of product as well. And I've been through the same nightmare scenarios where it's December 28th. We need something before end of year for executive team. We need to run numbers on which product we spend our dollars on the most, yep. Right?
I've done that exact exercise and it's like hours. I mean, I'm exporting and I have unclean naming conventions and I'm going line by line. It's like, I need to crack myself a Coors Light while I'm like doing this. It's just like painful. So I've made that mistake and learned from it. And now I'm like, I got to just do the plain naming convention. It doesn't need to be crazy. I don't do like 50 things in there. It's more of just like, what are the 3 things that I'm be asked about? And product is really like the number one for me.
Totally agree. I do the same exercise now where any new client partner, I'm going, okay, what variables can we control or do you guys care most about? Most of the time product, sometimes product category. I get some destination URLs, but less from executive team on destination URLs. And that's maybe more for optimizing. Yeah, a lot of folks will kind of set up like a scorecard too. And so maybe you want to, across a bunch of different channels, you want to have it set up so it's your own pivot table, can kind of do that function. But Yes. Destination URL. I really like hook too. I'm showing the example on screen, but this widget account here, gone ahead and set up. They have their own understanding of what hook 1 is. I think hook 1 is humor. Hook 8 is sustainability. They've kind of taken some qualitative research and talked to their customers, come up with 10 or so different hooks, push those into their ads. And for me, I really like this, right? If we're just coming in here as Carly and which one is most effective for us at our top line ROAS number, I can see for them that, yeah, this hook 7, we're giving $3,700 to it, but generally speaking, not resonating a ton as where some of these lower spenders, this hook 4, if that was humor or UGC, and we started to see trend, very actionable for me. So I like that one. And then just want to do a quick thumb through of, how to action and operationalize this, but top right section, automatic label rules. And this is where, if you have anything like Carly mentioned, product or product category, you'd go in here. So you'd label it product, you'd hit a create rule, go add name, contains product day, give it a name, save this bad boy, make another one, and just kind of rinse and repeat for each product you have. Can be a little cumbersome if you haven't done the naming conventions, but with naming conventions, then we can get those pivot tables nice and clean. So love it, Carly.
Well, and I'm taking a look at the chat here. It looks like a question came in about the biggest benefit of Northbeam that saved tons of time and made your decision making better. So I think for me, like if I had to pick one thing, it really is helping overcome a bit of that Facebook and TikTok. I'd say Facebook and TikTok with iOS 14 data issues. The brands I've worked for are big spenders, especially on Facebook. And even if I can just get a little bit more knowledge or feel more comfortable understanding that data versus Facebook is, modeled, it's, 95% of people are opting out. It's just like, I don't really know, I've kind of lost a little bit of trust in terms of what that ROAS is in platform. So I'd say utilize Northbeam data for that, which provides me just more comfort in like scaling or pulling back campaigns. So if something looks, mediocre in Facebook and Northbeam saying it's great, I'll scale it. Like I will kind of make budget decisions based on that on a high level as well as a really granular level. So I feel like for me, that's definitely the biggest, especially based on if you are spending a good amount, the cost of the tool versus if you improve efficiency 5%, like it's a no-brainer in the long run. So that's, I'd say, like the number one. The number two is, I'd say, those kind of LTV features and a little bit more of that analytics side, just because if you don't have a big analytics team, this stuff is really hard to pull. Like I wouldn't even know where to start. I would have to definitely hire like an analyst to pull this. So that is, I'd say, a big benefit as well in terms of like time and money saving is using some of those like LTV and model comparison tools.
Thanks so much, Carly. That pretty much brings us up to time. So for everybody still in the chat, we're going to send this out right after. Go to northbeam.io to request a demo today and keep an eye out for this in your email. But otherwise, Carly, thank you so much for jumping on here today and walking through all your trade secrets and all that, if they can be considered, we're just glad to have you here today. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate it. And thanks so much, everyone. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn if you ever want to chat.
Thank you so much, Carly. Carly is the best. Yes, feel free to hit her up on LinkedIn. And thank you so much, everybody, for joining. I learned a little bit from Carly. Hope you all did as well. Any questions, feel free to reach out to either me directly, Ryan at northbeam.io, or the customer team, success at northbeam.io. And we're happy to help.
Thanks so much. Bye, everyone.
Thanks. See you later.